Alex here from the Football Guys, here to talk about 4 players that I will not draft in 2023 fantasy football. And that starts with none other than Derrick Henry. And again, Derrick Henry has been awesome. Year after year, he consistently proves us wrong. And the problem I really have more than anything is that he's going as a top 5 running back in early drafts. I don't hate the player, he just has much higher risk than other guys in that range. He's 29 years old, he's in a bad offense, and we have no idea who will be QB next year. Their wide receiving core could be just as bad as last year, the quarterback could be even worse than Ryan Tannehill potentially, and he's 29 years old, and running backs that are that old rarely produce in fantasy football. So you say, okay, Alex, you're right, it's Derrick Henry, he's going to produce year after year, that's fine, but his risk compared to Christian McCaffrey, Austin Eckler, Jonathan Taylor, and Saquon Barkley, who are all going in that same range, Henry's risk is far higher than all of those guys, and for that reason, I'll be staying away from him because he is just going way too high in drafts, and someone else is always going to be willing to pay that cost. Going to wide receiver, a guy that I don't believe in is Deebo Samuel, who is currently going as the wide receiver 12 in fantasy football early drafts right now, which is just absolutely ridiculous. Last year, to start, he only had 3 finishes among the top 20 wide receivers in 13 games. For a guy going top 12 and he had 3 top 20 finishes and he only had 2 finishes inside the top 10, that is not what you want from a wide receiver. And you can get that almost anywhere in your draft where, yes, the talent is there for Deebo Samuel, but he was inconsistent last year and maybe he'll be better, but he really only has 1 true great finish in his career. They have a very uncertain QB situation where Brock Purdy is supposed to miss a year now. Kyle Shanahan said just the other day that he says that there's almost no chance that Jimmy Garoppolo returns to the 49ers. And is it going to be Trey Lance? Is it going to be someone else at quarterback? We don't even know who's going to be throwing Deebo the ball. And also, after signing Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey play a similar role. They're both guys that can catch short to intermediate passes, and they're both guys that give carries, so he plays a similar role. And I just think that there's too much that has to go right for someone like Deebo Samuel to produce. And that's ultimately in the early rounds we're looking at is what the risk each player proposes, and I think that Deebo Samuel has just a little bit too much risk for me. Next guy at running back that I also don't love is J.K. Dobbins. And I, just like you probably do, want to believe in J.K. Dobbins so much for fantasy football next year, but the Ravens have always run a running back by committee, and no running back with Lamar Jackson at quarterback has hit 35 catches in a season. That's right about 2 catches per game, which is not much for a running back. So if J.K. Dobbins is not going to catch a lot of passes and is a player that struggled with some injuries and is playing in an offense that generally does a running back by committee and not a true bell cow, once again, just like Deebo Samuel, too much has to go right for someone like for someone like J.K. Dobbins to be productive in this offense. I just can't get behind him. I don't like where he's going right now, where he's at a borderline top 20 running back for a guy that we've never really seen finish there over the full course of a season. I'm sorry, but I just can't do it. The last player, probably the most controversial, is Amari Cooper. And Amari Cooper, on paper, looks phenomenal. Okay, he just had the best finish of his entire career. He tied it. And now he has Deshaun Watson for a full season. He should be so much better. That's what it looks like on the surface. But even though he was been a top 30 wide receiver in 7 of his last 8 seasons, and he's playing with Deshaun Watson after his best career finish, this past year, he had 7 games where he finished outside the top 40 wide receivers. He's just very inconsistent week to week. But you say, okay, well, Alex, it's Jacoby Brissett and Deshaun Watson coming back. Maybe that's where the inconsistency was. But it was the same thing last year with Dak Prescott. He also had 7 games outside the top 40 wide receivers in 2021. This is who he's been his whole career. I mean, he's like a poor man's Mike Williams, or maybe he's a rich man's Mike Williams, where they're insanely productive and have week-winning upside sometimes, but other times they just have absolute dud performances, and I just can't be drafting that for my fantasy team where I'm playing, flip a coin every week of whether or not Amari Cooper's going to produce. So those are 4 players that just have a little bit too much risk for me, or guys that are not going to be consistent week to week. Please put it down in the comments. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Who are some other players that you also are not going to be drafting in fantasy football next year? Let us know down below. But as always, don't forget to subscribe, turn those bell notifications on, and keep enjoying Football Guys content coming out each and every single day.